Welcome to Candlewick Library. I'm Cheryl. Today I'm going to be talking about the movie adaptation of The Lost World by Michael Crichton. And just like with when I did this about Jurassic Park, I'm also going to talk a little bit about this book, The Ultimate Visual History of Jurassic Park, because it has a section on each of the first 3 Jurassic Park movies. What I did with the first one was I read the section on Jurassic Park and then watched the movie. So that is what I did again this time. I read the section on The Lost World and then watched the movie. So these are some of the things I learned about the Lost World adaptation from the visual history book. Michael Crichton had never written a sequel before this, which I didn't even think about that fact, but it's true. Steven Spielberg said, "I couldn't find a lot of story narrative in the middle part of Crichton's book, but his setup was excellent and he certainly put us on the right road. I just wanted, with The Lost World, to make the entire film about greed, about ego, and about lust for power. And so everything changed and reformed a little bit away from what Michael had written in his book to those themes for the sequel." So now we have our answer of why this movie is so different from the books. It has completely different bad guys. While it has some of the elements of the book, it is very different in story as well. I will say first, before I get into any spoilers about the movie, I actually enjoyed the adaptation more this time than I did the other times because of having read this visual history and knowing why they changed the things that they did, and that Michael Crichton kind of told them they could do whatever they wanted. I could appreciate their changes a little bit more. However, I still do not like this adaptation as a whole. So I will get more into why in a few minutes. They didn't want to repeat anything from the first film, so they got rid of Dodgson. So he is the main bad guy in that book, but they didn't want to have him back. I think that was kind of a weird decision. To say we don't want anything to be the same, I don't understand that. I think the fact that we already knew who Dodgson was, I think that actually made sense to have him still trying to get what he failed to get in the first one. I think that adds some continuity along with having Ian Malcolm there. They also got rid of the character of Levine, who is the whole reason that they're there, and Thorne, the one who made the cars. So you might ask yourself, well, wait a second, there is somebody in the movie that is making the cars and trailers for the expedition, but it is not Thorne. They took Thorne out. He said it also felt repetitive to have 2 kids. I actually like both Arby and Kelly in the book, so I am sad that they changed them. They took out Arby. They made Kelly Malcolm's daughter because with Levine gone, since he was the one that taught the kids, was the one that basically brought them into it, meeting Dr. Thorne and everybody else, Kelly didn't fit into the story the same way Kelly and Arby did in the book. They thought about making her Malcolm's student, but then decided against that and went with the theme of nurturing that the T-Rex had for their baby by making Malcolm also have a kid. And they felt like having failed relationship was consistent with chaos theory. So I think all that's kind of convoluted, but that was their reasoning for all of that. And it did say that Spielberg had seen the actress that plays her in the movie in something. I can't remember what it was he saw her in, and wanted to have her in something. So that is why she got the job. They also took some scenes from the first book. Famously would be the first scene. If you've read Jurassic Park, you know that the family on the beach with the compies is not from Lost World, it's from Jurassic Park. But they use that as the opening scene for this movie. Eddie and Sarah are still in the book, but Eddie is the one that is in charge of making the trailer and the vehicles. And then they introduced a new character, Nick Van Owen, who is a cameraman. So then they also have the bad guys, and they have a game hunter. Whole plot with that is a nod to a 1962 John Wayne movie called Hatar. And Spielberg said it's big game hunters who wouldn't hunt to kill, but they would hunt to capture, to send these animals to zoos all over the world. And so that was where he got his idea of this big group of game hunters basically coming in to capture all these animals to take them somewhere else. Of course, there is the one game hunter who wants to get the T-Rex in the movie. So while the first movie was about the failure of technology and the success of nature, this movie he wanted it to be about the failure of people to find restraint and morality to protect the animals. So that is why he changed everything he did. They also took the T-Rex and the waterfall scene where they're behind the waterfall and the T-Rex comes in and gets somebody and kills him. They took that from the first book as well. I talked about that in the last video, that they had taken that part out, and I was curious why, because I thought it was a good part. They filmed in Hawaii for the opening and some of the shots, but the rest was filmed in California this time. He said that they didn't want to use all the same dinosaurs, and they had new technology, so none of the new dinosaurs were built or operated the exact same as the ones in Jurassic Park. and they increased the dino species from 7 to 13 for this movie. Spielberg himself also wanted Julianne Moore for the role of Sarah. That is my biggest problem with the movie. I do not like her as an actress. I've seen her in some movies where I thought she did well. I think she plays Poyne pretty well in the Hunger Games movies. There's been a few other things I've seen her in that I thought she did okay in, but most of the movies that she's in, even ones where I liked the movie, I never really like her acting. I don't think she was the right choice for Sarah to begin with, but then I feel like they also destroyed Sarah's character. So I'll get to that again in a minute. But he wanted her, so that's why she was cast. Originally, they had decided to do a third movie. The dinosaurs were going to get loose on the mainland, but Steven Spielberg changed his mind and halfway through the filming, and he decided he didn't want to do a third movie anymore. So let's make the third act of this movie what would have been the third movie. That's kind of funny since there did end up being a movie later that was made a third movie, but he was not the one who did it. I thought that was kind of dumb, but it also made sense to me now why that felt disjointed, because here's all this island stuff and then all of a sudden, oh, we're leaving and now the T-Rex is in LA. To me, it felt a little bit off, and that's because it was not part of the original story. The screenwriter actually plays the guy in it who tries to get away from the T-Rex by going into a bookstore and gets eaten. The movie was released on May 19th, 1997. We'll open up with the family having the picnic and the girl gets bit by the compies. Then it goes to Malcolm yawning. A guy recognizes him on the subway. They set it up that he had actually told people about it, whereas in the book he actually hadn't. They weren't supposed to talk about it and he hadn't. But in this they set it up that he had tried to talk about it and nobody, a lot of people don't believe him that it happened. They go to Hammond's house because in this movie universe, Hammond is still alive. And Tim and Lex are there, and it is the same actors, so I thought that was fun to see them again. Then we meet his nephew. So Hammond's nephew comes in and he tells him, you signed an NDA and you didn't keep it. And of course, like I said, he did keep it in the book. And he says that he had a right to tell the truth. And the nephew says something about your version of it. And Malcolm says, there aren't any versions of the truth, which I loved. That is a quote, not from the book, just from the movie. And I loved it. I thought it was a great quote. We find out that the nephew has taken over InGen, and Hammond says that he's so thankful for Site B and tells Malcolm about the breeding the animals on Site B. Really bad hurricane had come, so they released all the animals. No fences, no borders, like it should have always been. But they were trying to keep it from humans. And he has organized an expedition to go and document what it has become. He said, I'm not making the same mistakes again. And Malcolm says, no, you're making all new ones. Because again, even though they let him live, Hammond is still a terrible person when it really comes down to it. He tells him, we have Nick Van Owen, the photojournalist. We have Eddie Carr, field equipment specialist. We have a paleontologist. He doesn't say what her name is yet. So in this, since they took out Levine, it is now Hammond who's putting together this, not Levine. So he wants Ian to come, of course. Ian says no, but then he finds out that it's Sarah, and Hammond tells him she's already there. The others are meeting her there in 3 days. So we find out that Sarah is Ian's girlfriend. And like I said, in the book, there's a hint of a previous relationship, but they are not together. And so now he has to go rescue her. So in the book, it's Levine there. They go to rescue him. In this, it's Sarah. They go to the warehouse, meet Eddie and Nick, and Kelly shows up. We find out that it's his daughter, that she's on a gymnastics team, and they get on the boat on their way. They talk about the islands being all the 5 deaths. The boat won't stay there, so they'll leave and then they'll have to come back. And they find, just like in the book, they found part of Levine's backpack. In this, they find Sarah's backpack with a hole in it. So they start yelling for her, which doesn't make sense. Because of who Ian Malcolm is and what he should know, why would they start yelling for her in the middle of the dinosaurs? I thought that was kind of dumb. Then they see a bunch of Stegosaurus. They're all excited to see them. And Ian says another funny line, ooh, ah. And then later comes the running and screaming. Sarah shows up with a camera. She scares Nick and she is all giggly. She is just giggling, giggling, giggling. And this is where it starts for me, where I feel like they ruined her. Like I read some of the quotes from the book. Sarah is a tough, adventurous, awesome girl in the book. She is no nonsense, jumps in where she's needed. She's the one that's a hero, saving people. And in this, she's a giggly mess. And then she starts telling Ian about the dinosaurs and what she has been observing. And that whole speech is what I'm talking about why I'm not a fan of her as an actress. If you go and watch it, to me, it just feels like I memorized this with zero emotion. It's such a bad characterization of her, and she keeps making naive mistakes throughout this whole part. Throughout the whole movie, she makes mistakes Sarah would not have made as somebody who was an expert in predators. But then she tells them, we're here to observe, not interact, after she had just been touching the baby. So dumb. And so then they see a fire, they go back, they find out Kelly has snuck along and she's making dinner at the trailer. I like Eddie. I like the character of Eddie. I like the guy who plays him. He doesn't look the way I picture him, but he plays the part well. You know, for having to mix Eddie and Thorne, they've you know, taken those two characters and put them together. But I think he plays the part well. Malcolm and Sarah are arguing in the trailer and the helicopter comes over that says InGen on it. And they're like, why are there two teams? And we meet the hunter that is with the nephew. You find out that he wants, that his paycheck for helping is to be able to get one male T-Rex. Why he wants it, he says, you don't get to know why I want it, but I get one. They have cars and motorcycles and they are immediately capturing dinosaurs. And in this, it's not the eggs, it's the full grown dinosaurs. So they're out catching those, creating lots of chaos, lots of noise, lots of dirt flying around. The team watches them sadly, seeing what they are doing to the dinosaurs. They see them finding the T-Rex nest and taking the baby. Nick, we find out, is a backup plan, the photojournalist, in case they showed up. So he knew that they might show up, but hadn't told anybody yet. So they go to the camp and they start unlocking all of the cages to let the animals out. And the animals get out and ransack the whole place. But Nick plays the part of Eddie, I guess, at this part. They compiled Eddie and Thorne and they compiled Eddie and Nick. They both get some of Eddie's personality. And he gets the baby T-Rex with the broken leg and they do an ultrasound on it, but it's really loud, the baby. And Kelly wants to get high. Like get to a high spot. She's scared. So Malcolm takes her up to the high hide. Nick helps Sarah with the baby. Eddie goes with Malcolm and Kelly to the high hide. They try to communicate, but don't get any answers. So Ian goes down to warn them that something is coming. When he gets back in the trailer, a car flies by the trailer and they see that the T-Rexes are on both sides of the trailer looking in. They put the baby right outside and the adults go back into the jungle and then come back and knock the trailer toward the cliff. This is the part that is the most like the book. Since this scene did happen in the book, but they do change a lot even with this, like them putting the baby out instead of the T-Rex breaking through the window and getting the baby. When the trailer starts to go over the edge, Sarah falls down onto the bottom to the glass and it starts to crack and break under her. Ian goes down to save her. And then she is saved by her lucky backpack that he is holding. In the book, Sarah is the hero who saves Ian. In the movie, they made Ian the hero who saves Sarah. And I don't know if they just did that because they wanted Ian Malcolm to be the bigger character in the movie, or if they just knew that Julianne Moore couldn't do it as well as Sarah did in the book. I don't know. I don't know why they changed that. But Eddie does go down and drives to the trailer and attaches a rope to the car and to the trailer. But then he, unfortunately, is killed by the T-Rexes. He's ripped in two. And then the trailer and car go over the edge. It's more exciting, but less believable than the book, I feel like. The bad guys show up and help them over the edge where they're hanging. Ian and Sarah are hanging on the rope. They're trying to climb up. They help them get up. So now they're all stuck together. These guys are like, you ruined our camp and now your camp's ruined and now we're all stuck together in this to try to survive. This is one of the parts that really drove me crazy. Sarah has T-Rex baby blood on her. Now this is a woman who works with predators and she does not go and wash off her jacket to get the baby blood off it or just dispose of it because it's got baby. They're in a hot jungle anyway. Why does she need a jacket? And it wipes off on a fern, wipes some blood off. She doesn't notice that. Sarah Harding would not have been that dumb. Then they have a guy that is killed by the compies. He had been torturing them with a little electric thingy, so it's his comeuppance moment. So he got Hammond's death from the first book. He gets it. They're sleeping in the jungle. Water in the tent starts doing its thing where it, vibrates if a T-Rex is coming. And Sarah looks up and sees her jacket hanging in the tent and realizes, and it's like, oh yeah, duh, duh, Sarah. So the T-Rex is outside their tent and it comes in. She is whimpering out loud. She is making noise. Then Kelly wakes up and screams. It still doesn't grab either one of them. I don't know why. A man wakes up and screams. And so then they all start waking up and start yelling and running. So the hunter goes to try to shoot it, but Nick has changed out his bullets. One guy gets squished. The hunter gets the tranquilizer darts and goes after the T-Rex. One is still chasing the people. This is where they take the part from Jurassic Park and they go behind the waterfall, but one guy has a snake go down his shirt and he starts freaking out and so the T-Rex gets him. And Sarah is still whimpering and crying and making noise throughout this whole thing. And then they all go out to this long grass. They're all running through the grass. They're being so loud. This is where we get a really cool shot, though, from the movie. Like, as much as I don't like this part, and I see all those things, which I know they're making it exciting for the viewers. They want you to be scared. So probably the people have to be making mistakes. But it's an above shot looking down, and you see raptors coming from all the different directions. And you just see the trail of them through the long grass. And that looked really cool. People start getting taken one by one, but then they find the old building. And our core group of Nick and Ian and Kelly and Sarah, they're walking around. They're seeing dead animals, just basically skeletons. But then the raptors show up. Everybody else is like gone, forgotten. We're just this group now. The girls go inside the shed. Ian gets in a car. Sarah and Kelly start digging on one side of the shed, thinking the raptor will stay over there. They can get out the back. But then the raptors show up at their hole too, while leaving one over on the other side because they're smart. Then they all end up in the shed with raptors there. The part that I think is the cheesiest part of the whole movie. You guys tell me if you totally disagree with this, if you loved this thing. But we got the background of Kelly being in gymnastics for this part so that there could just be a magical bar in the middle of this shed that's strong enough to hold her doing gymnastics flips. And she does a big gymnastics routine to kick the raptor. I just think it's so funny. She kicks the raptor out. The helicopter shows up. They all get on the helicopter. And you'd think it was over, but they look down and they see the other guys have the big T-Rex and they're all getting ready to go. So they have captured the T-Rex and a lot of them have still survived. They also have the infant. Roland, the game hunter, his friend had died and he seems to have changed a bit. And he says, I've spent enough time in the company of death. They all end up back in the US and they must go drop off, Kelly at home or something. But then there's a meeting at the dock with possible buyers as they wait for the T-Rex to show up. And so Malcolm and Sarah show up without Kelly, and they're trying to get in. Everybody notices that there's a boat coming into the dock, but it's coming too fast. And so it hits the dock at full speed. The crew is all dead. It shows like an arm on the wheel. How did they all die? The doors are open a couple of feet and kind of going up and down. So it was like, did it get up and kill everybody? And then it went back down and then it got stuck? Or what? Like, how did these people die? That's never fully answered for me. It even says in the book that they realized that where a lot of the dead bodies were, that it would have been too small for the T-Rex to have been able to reach to get in there to kill them. But they just decided they didn't care. Just leave it in. It's fine. Don't worry about it. I think that's why it didn't ring true to me, where I just felt like that whole part was kind of weird. As soon as a guard opens up the door, it breaks out and we have a T-Rex on the loose. Ian tells the nephew, now you're John Hammond. The infant was brought back on a plane, not on the boat. So Sarah says, we need to go find that infant. We need to go. The mom is going to be trying to find her infant. We need to get it. We can get it back on this boat if we bring the infant back here. So they go looking for the baby dinosaur. And then, so we just see the T-Rex causing havoc throughout the town. It goes outside a little boy's room. He says there's a dinosaur in the backyard. The parents are like, yeah. And then they see it and scream. That part's kind of funny. Ian and Sarah get to the big amphitheater that they've been building. InGen has been building, where obviously they're going to have the T-Rex, and they're planning on having it right here in the town. They get the baby, they put it in the car and drive back to the boat. They see the T-Rex, they get it to make a noise, so the T-Rex is chasing them back. They're getting it to the boat. The nephew sees them put the baby down where the T-Rex had been, and they run back up, but the nephew really still wants it, so he goes back down there. They jump off the boat, but he's in there when adult T-Rex gets back. So it gets him and gives him to the baby to eat. So he gets kind of the same ending as Dodgson did in the book, except that it's just one baby. Sarah and Ian then get back on the boat and close the hatch, and she shoots it with a tranquilizer. Then we see a news report. They're back at the house with Kelly. We see a news report that says the boat is going back. It's got a Navy escort. Kelly's watching it, but Sarah and Ian are asleep. And then it ends on the island with T-Rexes, Stegosaurus, and Pteranodons landing. That's how the movie ends. It feels like it's an okay movie knowing why they changed some of the things, but not a good adaptation. So I would give it like a C for a movie and a D for the adaptation. The C and the D are mainly for ruining Sarah Harding's character. They just made the coolest character in the book into the weakest character in the movie, in my opinion. I would love to know your thoughts on it. If you watched it, did you like it? And if you did, tell me why. And if you agree with me on some of these things, let me know that too. I hope you've enjoyed this. There are no more Jurassic Park books to read, so I won't have those kind of reviews throughout the rest of the year. But I will continue to be reading books about dinosaurs, reading Michael Crichton books and talking about those. But I also will continue the rest of the year to watch the Jurassic Park movies in the order that they came out. I've watched the most recent one not that long ago. And the third movie I've watched enough times that I remember it better. But all of the other ones in between, I have not watched very many times. So I am excited to watch all of them in order again, and I will make a video about my thoughts on all of them. Since there isn't a book, I go into them with less expectations, and it will mainly just be a review of what I think of the storyline, of where they take the movie. So those will be coming up throughout the rest of the year.